Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Workflows and Espressos. Merry Christmas if you are listening to this episode, if you are listening to this on Christmas Eve, because that is when this episode is going to be released. And if it's after Christmas for you, I hope you had the best Christmas with your friends, family, honestly, by yourself, if that was better than being with your friends and family. I am really excited about today's episode because I had this idea a couple days ago, and I have requested some of my friends in the industry give me a topic, and I want to give them or give you listeners my take on it. But before we get to that, I'm in my new home office and I'm so excited about it. I've really needed, so I do work from home a couple days a week, and I have worked at my kitchen counter. That's where I've recorded a lot of episodes, like hunched over, and it's absolutely horrible. So I decided to pull the trigger on a home office, and I got the Mac Studio display for my laptop, and I needed somewhere to record and obviously like put up picture frames for my wedding. And so for those of you who don't know or have never watched Workflows and Espressos on YouTube, which honestly every episode I'm in my pajamas, so it's probably best that you're not seeing me if you aren't watching. I live in a log cabin, and so we can't really hang photos on our walls, and we also rent our space. So I really wanted somewhere to like put my pictures up. And so I ordered a desk, and home offices are investments, man. It is so expensive, but now I have one and I am so excited, and it feels like I like finally have my own spot in my house to work. And yeah, I love it so much. So that's the update in my life. And I finished Christmas shopping. I wrapped all of Clark's presents last night. We're very funny, like very different because I do all of my Christmas shopping for the most part on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And because we live in Jackson, there really aren't a lot of places. Like I do go to some local businesses just for some like gear stuff for Clark. Man, I hope he's not listening to this. I don't think he is. Okay, anyway. And then I order things online. And so yeah, I go for the deals, which is interesting because I'm usually not like a big bargainer, and he is a huge bargainer, but he does not think like ahead of time enough to like know what he wants to get for me or for anyone on Black Friday. Like that is way too far for Christmas for him. So he will do like most of his Christmas shopping starting right now, which I'm recording this on the 18th. And so it's gonna be an interesting, and then he'll come home on Christmas Eve like a bat out of hell and wrap all the gifts. But he does incredible on Christmas. He's a really great gift giver. Okay. Now it was only 3 minutes and 54 seconds that you had to listen to me and my updates. So let's get into it. Okay. So I did not read these topics beforehand, and I just kind of like wrote them down, or I had them like compiled, but I haven't gone through what they are, and I'm going to see like how much I can get to in 30 minutes. But I also haven't like prepared all of my thoughts on them, like studied. But I feel like that'll be more interesting because it's my genuine like off the cuff take on these topics and like what to expect moving forward and what my opinions are on them now. It's also kind of a lot of pressure, so hopefully I don't sound like an idiot. Okay, so let's see. The first topic is regulation. Okay. Whew. This is a big one. My first thought on regulation is that it is something, whether you have faced it or not, that should be on your radar. And I don't want to like fear monger, because I've listened to podcasts that are like, if you're not doing this, you absolutely need to be, and you're going to fall behind, blah, blah, blah. I do think that regulation is one of those things, though, that regulations are always tightening, right? And especially in the urban markets in the beginning. And now it's trickled its way through all the leisure destinations. And at the local level, people are getting frustrated. And vacation rental managers or vacation rentals are a great scapegoat, unfortunately for us. And so I think if you are fortunate enough to never have faced regulation, that is incredible. But I also think it's important to have the mindset that it could and will likely happen to you. And if it doesn't, that's amazing. But it's better to be prepared than unprepared. And to me, what prepared looks like is number one, forming a relationship with your local alliance, if there is one. And if there's not, reaching out to other property managers in your area and asking them to form an alliance is huge. And I understand that it takes time out of your day. So if there's somebody on your team that you want to put as the representative of your company on this alliance, I think it's so important just to have a group together. Like one voice makes a difference, but a collective of voices that are saying the same thing makes a larger difference. So, like this collaboration, I think is really, 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 really important. And you have more of a chance of thriving and beating this regulation. And I just think in general, like our industry needs unified voices to influence fair regulation. And I also think that, like, if you are facing regulation in general, there is such a thing as good regulation. And it is worth, I would say, like, compromising on things that might make your business more tedious and add a little bit more to your plate in order to prevent stricter regulation that could lead to, the downfall of vacation rentals in your industry. And in general, I mean, I think that increased regulation could potentially push out smaller operators who don't have the capacity to license and do all the additional processes. And, in Jackson, you have to go online and you have to fill out a whole, like, it's a lot, right? It becomes very tedious, and when you have a larger team where you can assign somebody to go in and take care of the administrative work that comes with local or state regulations that you faced, it is much easier. And when you don't have that smaller team and when you aren't having to pay, these exorbitant fees that maybe some of you have chosen to pass off to your owners and some of you haven't, I think that it could be harder for those smaller operators. But my hope is that with this like unified voice, and we have resources like Rent Responsibly, like Verma to reach out to when we do need help and we need a guide as to how these alliances should be formed and what the topics of conversation in our meetings should be and how to gain new members, all the things, right? Like, I think that what Rent Responsibly and what Verma are doing is so huge in the industry and can really like help this new wave of alliances that are forming in the next year. And I know that was like a lot of rambling thoughts, but I guess to summarize, we all know it is not this like new thought that I've had that regulation is going to keep coming. And I think it's unfortunate. But I think all you can do is form a collective, be a part of a collective, accept regulation that isn't going to hinder your daily business and put you in a really bad, like, financial or operational position. Good regulation is important, and it's always important to play nice. Do the economic impact studies. They're expensive, but it can make a difference when you are facing that regulation. Know who your officials are. I think that's really, really important. Form relationships with them and go to your town council meetings and get involved. Make that a part of your job. And I know that that sucks. And I know that we don't have a lot of availability to add more parts to our job, but I think that it is worth it in the end. Okay. And that's my take on regulation. Okay, our next topic is sustainability, which I've never talked about on this podcast before. Oh man. Okay. My take on sustainability. The reason why I've hesitated to speak on sustainability on workflows and espressos is because I have not found a way to make an actual difference. Hmm, maybe that's not true. We have made decisions in our companies that have made us more sustainable, but I would not consider us like green by any means. And I think I struggle speaking on something that I don't feel like an expert on. And I don't know. Sustainability is hard because I feel like it became this very big buzzword in our industry probably 2 years ago, but I've really felt like the execution is spotty. And what I have seen, like, for example, in our coffee shop, we have compostable packaging, right? Here's my issue with compostable packaging is great. We don't have a compost in Jackson, which is horrible. But, right, it is this like illusion, and we pay more for compostable packaging, and we know that it's important that, it is at least more green than regular plastic, but it still is going into a landfill, right? And I feel like that's a lot of sustainability right now in general. And so it's also been incredibly expensive to be more sustainable. And I was also reading something that um this is wild. Okay. So I have worked for companies that have had single use amenities, and I've also worked for companies that have had bulk amenities. And the company that I worked for that had single use amenities, we really considered moving to bulk amenities for it to be more sustainable. And someone please call me out if this is wrong. So I started doing research, and it turns out that what I discovered is that it is can be more wasteful to have bulk amenities than to have single use shampoos, conditioners, and body washes in your units. And I'm sorry, that blew my freaking mind. And so many people have bulk amenities because the illusion is that it is more sustainable. And the reason why it's more wasteful is because of the refilling. Like, you have these giant gallons that you have to refill. You're having to purchase more bulk amenities when they get dirty or someone Sharpies on them or whatever. And I just like, I thought that that was mind blowing, which maybe the joke is on me for not thinking that. So I guess my take on sustainability is a lot of it is an illusion. And so I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate sustainability into our businesses that is true, that is real, that truly makes a difference, that actually is more sustainable. And I think that a lot of it is very like performative, right? And we do it, right, with our compostable packaging. That is performative because it isn't actually making a huge difference because of our lack of compost available. And so I guess that's the code that I'm trying to crack, is how can we make it our business more sustainable without it being so performative, right? Like it's very meaningful. Even if it is performative to some degree, at least it's making a difference, which I feel like, we haven't found this balance yet. And that it isn't the most expensive thing on the budget, right? Because I think that's really hard, is it's become so, 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 so expensive to be more sustainable. I do think in mountain destinations, especially, and in urban destinations, I think it's less in the Southeast. Guests are becoming more eco conscious. And so I think that if we aren't moving more in a sustainable direction, that we could potentially alienate a growing customer base that we have. But it's still code that I'm trying to crack. So I do think that I would love to see our industry move towards standardized sustainability metrics in the next couple of years, so consumers can make like more informed choices. And so us as operators can understand, like, okay, what sustainability metrics truly make a difference to the actual environment, and how much is this going to cost us as a collective. And yeah, so I guess that's my take. I don't know, maybe this is a bad idea. None of my takes are very good, but I'm very curious. Like, honestly, I'd love to do a full episode on sustainability with somebody who has mastered it. So maybe that is something to come in early 2025. So Curious what everybody else thinks about that. That's my thought. Yeah, not great. Okay. Let's see. Next topic, AI. I've really talked about AI till I was blue in the face on the podcast. Here's my thought on AI. Last year, the conversation was if you aren't using ChatGPT, if you aren't using AI, you need to be like, there's a real chance of falling behind. And now I think at this point, everybody's using ChatGPT. Like, I don't think that it is this conversation anymore of, hey, make sure that you have a ChatGPT account and you're running your emails through and, using it to build some marketing plans, whatever. Like, I think that's being done. And so I think the conversation is shifting now, which is really exciting, but it's also scary, right? I mean, the good news is that all of the tech tools that we are using, and I do think this is true as well, that more people in 2025 are going to stop buying software and rely on what they have and kind of take a break for a second because I think the landscape has become pretty overwhelming. So, I think what we can expect with AI in 2025 is all of our existing tools are going to get better because they already are using AI in every single tool that you have. I mean, including like freaking Google and your emails, like, right? Like, what software do you have that hasn't said, "Hey, we have a new update and, we've incorporated AI." I think that's great. I think there's way more to come in 2025 of that. And I think that our dynamic pricing tools and ChatGPT is ultimately just the beginning. Like, AI in the future, we are going to be able to utilize it to personalized guest recommendations, like by segment, and predict maintenance issues before they even happen based on all this past data. Like, I am so excited for what this means for us. I do think that human intervention is so, so, so important still. And I think it will be. I think a lot of questions that I got asked at DARM, because I did this crystal ball prediction panel, or a question that we were asked on the panel was, do we think that AI is going to replace humans on the team? And my answer to that is yes, like to a certain degree. I think there are definitely some positions, not necessarily entire departments, that will be replaced by AI, but I do think that there are some roles that will be replaced by AI. And I'm maybe not in 2025, but definitely in 2026 if I had to make a prediction. But I do think in terms of like owner relations and retaining owners and relationship building and, being a gateway to other departments, specifically on the revenue manager side, because I think that's a lot of where we're afraid of jobs being replaced. Like, we need somebody to explain revenue management to the rest of the team. And I think that a human can do that best. And revenue managers have had to be this like conduit for other departments for so long. And they have to be able to speak in this like data language and in, you know, quote unquote, normal people talk. And so I think that that is still going to be very, very necessary. But having somebody like a data analyst on your team or someone who does manual data entry, I am very curious to see how that evolves in the next year or so. So I guess my take is AI is obviously incredible for scalability and for efficiency. But I do think that we have to be really careful for over reliance on tasks that kind of remove the human touch, because that's what sets us apart as operators. So I think the next wave of AI is going to be predictive AI, right? Like predicting things before they happen, and really, really, really honing in on like these localized guest recommendations and guest issues and inventory segmentation, helping operators forecast demand and optimize their workflow. Like, I think revenue management AI in this next year is going to be badass, but humans are still going to be important. So yeah, that's my take on AI. I'm curious if everybody else feels the same way, really, on all these. Ooh, next one. I don't know. I might have time for two more. Okay, so next one is standardization. So, standardization, I talked about this with Ashley Ching, and I am very excited for the role that standardization is going to play in our industry in 2025. I feel like it has been an ongoing conversation that I've had with friends in the industry, other operators over the last couple of years. How can we create more certainty, more trust, more standardization in our experiences so that we can win against hotels and build more trust on the OTAs. And Ashley within Haven, she talks about how it's so good. Okay, so if Clark reaches out to you and says, "Hey, do you want to ride in my car?" You're like, "No, I don't know you." But if Clark is on Uber, then you automatically trust him. Right? If Megan says, "Hey, do you wanna come stay in my house?" You're like, "No, that's very bizarre." But if Megan is an Airbnb host, then you automatically assumed that she's vetted, she's trusted. And I'd love to understand, like, I think it'd be really curious to do a customer poll to see, like, the trust in Uber versus the trust in an Airbnb and or a vacation rental, but let's just face it, travelers call vacation rentals Airbnbs. And I I think that it is our job to help build this trust with guests, which we are obviously all trying to do at our individual level as professional property managers. What we have not been able to do is talk to all of our friends, form this collective and say, "Hey, how are we going to create standardization in our industry?" And I think In Haven, who's actually not even sponsoring this episode, I just really believe in what they're doing, has started to crack the code because In Haven focuses on standardizing the bed, bath, and kitchen, right? These items that people don't want mystery in their bed, bath, and kitchen. You don't want mystery in your towels, and you don't want mystery in what your shower curtain looks like or whatever, right? What you do want is this like unique charm of your property in the location, in the type of house it is. Is it a log cabin? Is it a I keep wanting to say tin house. That's not right. A tiny home? You know what I'm talking about. A container home. Is it a container home? Is it on the river? Is it by the beach, right? Those are the things that are unique. The furniture in your living room, right? Like these things that you can still do to have charm in your rental. But having 4 pans versus 6 pans is not uniqueness. That is frustrating for guests. So I'm curious, like I would really love to see more managers start to standardize these like bed, bath, and kitchen items and really start to build more certainty because I think that that is ultimately what hurts our reputation as vacation rental managers, which I think can be really frustrating when we are professionals that do a really good job. But, I think there's less and less differentiation between us and a host. And when it comes to what the guest thinks and what the guest knows and sees. So that's my take. Too much standardization obviously can make vacation rentals feel super like cookie cutter and ruin the unique charm, but I think that there is a certainty that needs to be built with travelers. And I think that needs to come sooner rather than later because I think it's a big threat to us. Yikes. That was a sad note to end on. Last one, let's see. Oh man, there was still a bunch that I didn't get to. My take on best software solutions of 2024. Ooh. Two software that I feel like have done an incredible job of building a community of raving fans where it doesn't matter who you talk to in the industry. Probably 90% of people are going to say, I could not live without this software. I am the biggest fan. And man, that is Breezeway and Key Data. I think that those two companies, Breezeway and Key Data, have built a software that managers do not and cannot live without. And I think that that is how you build a badass company. And so I think that that is what's like stood out most to me. And there's been a lot of conversations on panels and on LinkedIn about like, hey, what software could you not live without? Which software makes your day that you use every single day that you would literally like someone would have to pry it out of your cold dead hands, and Breezeway and Key Data come up every single time. And so shout out to both of them. That's huge. I think also for dynamic pricing, I really feel like Wheelhouse and Price Labs have stood out above the rest. And that, like, when I talk to friends in the industry, like, they're usually using one or the other. And so I don't know. I don't think I could say that I prefer one to the other. And Anurag and Richie and Andrew were all so incredible, and their teams are amazing. And so, yeah, I don't know. I would say that Wheelhouse and Price Labs are probably tied for first on dynamic pricing. I'm doing it big with the name dropping. Okay. Marketing wise, honestly, like for me personally, I could not live without HubSpot. Like HubSpot has truly changed our operations and we use it for almost every single business. So that's my answer for like a marketing tool, and we use it for our CRM as well, on not for Outpost but for our other businesses. PMS this year, honestly, like Guesty's been making a really big splash still. And so I'm curious to see, like, with their war chest behind them, which enterprise level property managers are going to move to Guesty in the next year. And more importantly, what their experience is going to be onboarding. And then, once they've already been onboarded, what that's going to look like. So I can't speak too much. And track, we are track users ourselves. We like track. But yeah, I don't know if there's a PMS yet that is come out so on top that you have people that say like, oh my God, this is the best software I've ever used. It's the dynamic pricing and the operational tools. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. I'm kind of nervous for people to hear this. Okay. This was really fun. Honestly, like, you guys might think that I sounded like a blubbering idiot for 30 minutes. So if you never want to hear this again, then please let me know. But all of these topics were really interesting to me. And I'm glad, I don't know, looking back, I probably could have had more thoughts if I looked at them beforehand, but I also wanted to give you like my off the cuff thoughts. So it felt more conversational. And what I'd really like to talk about, so topics that I didn't get to was OTAs, field operations, the role of data moving forward, revenue management, and the guest experience. Ultimately, I think all of these topics are so important. I am so excited for 2025. I think I probably say this every year that our industry is like at such a pivotal moment. And I think it is true every single year. And I'm really curious to see how things evolve in 2025, but I know that it is going to be freaking fun, like it always is. So I hope you'll have the best holidays and get lots of rest. And you know what? I will talk to you next year. Bye.